Retail workers of Reddit. What's your Black Friday horror story? Story 1. I worked for a golf superstore as a cashier. Black Friday customers come rushing in, and the line starts. I proceed to scan the first item, and nothing. The registers are completely down, and the lines are growing fast. The only thing we could do is take every transaction manually. Write down SKUs, calculate tax, and use the old credit card swipers for 3 hours. I never worked retail during Black Friday again. Story 2. Worked at a store that had a service department. They couldn't ring up anything at the service counter, but they had a computer which made it look like a register. Guy is standing there patiently waiting to be rung up. Finally, somebody notices him and asks what he needs. "I'd like to pay." He says, "I'm sorry, this isn't a register," replies the service tech. The guy then proceeds to try and convince the service tech to let him pay, because the line for the main registers is 3 hours long. Of course, the service tech couldn't, because he didn't have a register. He just had a computer for making appointments and such. So after 15 minutes of argument, the guy moves off to find the line. Here's the fun part. While he was arguing, somebody else saw him standing by something that looked like a register, and so got in line behind him. Then people saw the shorter line and got in behind them. With nobody to control it, the line to nowhere grew quickly. 15 minutes was all it took for the knot line to snake all the way around the department. So when the doofus who started this whole fiasco went to find the right line, he found the end of the line he had started. Then the guy behind him heard that there wasn't a register, so he followed the first guy. Then the next customer followed the second, and so on. They walked around in a circle for an hour before somebody noticed them. We almost had a riot when a manager had to tell 100 people that they weren't in line and had just waited an hour for nothing. That same year, we had several scuffles at points where the register line had forked into 2 lines. From then on, we marked off a huge register path and had several employees just manage the line. Story 3. Store is absolutely packed, and a larger trailer trash-looking woman gets up to the register with 4 coffee machines, about 30 different pieces of clothing, clearly none of which would fit her, a set of pots and pans, and a blender. I'm at the register serving a line of, at this point, probably 20 people. She gets to my register, and I ring everything up. Total comes out to about 200, because most of the she's getting is cheap that we sell, even cheaper on Black Friday, of course. As soon as I tell her the total, I'm wrong, so is the register. Apparently, you double scan most of it. It should be half that price. No, I didn't, lady. Learn to count. I wish I could say that to her, but my manager is literally right behind me on the other register and would chew me out like no tomorrow. So in my nicest read, most sarcastic tone of voice, I reply, "I don't believe I did. You can even see it right here on the register. If you really want me to, I can start over to make sure nothing scanned more than once," though of course she ignores the whole damn thing and just tries to pay. She's clearly not been to the store before, because our old as register system requires us to take your card and swipe it ourselves. She spends a few seconds looking around for where she can scan her card, and I chime, "We have to scan it up here, ma'am. System is too old for us to have something where you scan the card. I'm so sorry about that." She's already pissed enough and trying to fight with me about her scanning it herself. Finally, after spitting in my face for a few seconds while I'm forced to smile like the brain-dead monkey corporate thinks I am, she hands me the damn card. I check the name because legally we have to, and we have to see ID as well. Well, I see the card and immediately expect a shit show because the first name on it is David. She hands me her ID, and lo and behold, her name ain't David. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't legally charge this card unless David is with you, in which case ID need to see his ID. Are you kidding me? This is my son's card. HES letting me use it. HES at home with my husband, as if this wasn't bad enough already. I'm sorry, I can't swipe this card unless it's yours. Do you have a different card on you with your name on it?" After grumbling for a bit, McBitchface hands over a different card. Go through the normal motions. Card declined. "How can this get any worse? Your card was declined, ma'am." Cue me getting screamed at in front of an ever-growing, impatient live audience. Let me talk to your manager. At this point, I can only pray that itself will swallow this demon up, or at least end me, so I don't have to deal with it. My manager turns around from a register, says, "Just a moment, ma'am. I'm finishing up this transaction. Then I'll be right with you, of course. This little old lady ain't got the time for that." At this point, I'm pretty sure my line at the register should be paying me for the entertainment they get out of this lady unloading all of her bats hit on me. My manager finally turns around and has me switch to her register for the time being. While she handles the crazy, I manage to get a few people through the register while I hear screaming coming from both sides. As my manager isn't great with being yelled at how the "did anyone think that was a good idea," I get a few comments and look from customers basically saying I'm so sorry. We're not all terrible. Finally, I hear McBitchface over there yell that she'll put all her back and go shop somewhere else. Turns out that's not what she did. Instead, she ended up going to the exit on the other side of our department and trying to walk out with everything in the cart. My manager sees this and calls LP. And so does the cashier on the register down there. LP sends some of their guys over to her, and they try and stop her after calling the police. Now, I didn't get to leave the register because we were packed, but I was told she tried to fight a few of the people from LP before the cops got there. Ended up with her getting arrested. The rest of my day sucked anyway, but that made it a bit better. I am not an employee, but I stood behind a lady at Target who was returning a newly bought iPad. She was livid because her iPad wasn't charging. She claimed that the tablet had Wi-Fi connection to the store, and it wasn't charging like it was supposed to. She was told that the cord came with it was the only way to charge it. She balked at the statement and adamantly said that since it's hooked up to Target's free Wi-Fi, it should be charging. Sadly, this is not the case, and left spot not obscenities. Sad to think she thought Wi-Fi charged her iPad. Story 4. About 15 years ago, I was working at a bookstore in a mall. Somehow, around 5 p.m. maybe, I found myself the only employee in the entire store, not a single coworker to be found, and we were slammed with customers. We usually had music playing in the store, controlled by an ordinary 5 CD stereo in the back office. And of course, this is the day the inoffensive holiday music gets brought into circulation. Around the time I found myself alone, I noticed the stereo had become stuck on repeat, just playing the same song over and over. It was at least an hour before I was able to get away from the counter. And so that was the day I was forced to listen to some kind of generic, very jazzy Jingle Bells some 30 times back to back. Story 5. Just today, I sold a couch to a guy who drove a Prius with no roof rack. We do not deliver, and he wouldn't leave until we found a way to get this thing secured his car somehow. Not only had he clearly not planned ahead or thought it through, he was a total about it and insisted on making our problem. We ended up using half a spool of twine to tie this thing down, and he had to climb in through the window because the twine went through his doors. I really wish I had taken a picture. At one point, he complained to our GM, who had no idea what we were supposed to have done to appease this moron. Finally, we insisted that he sign a waiver before leaving, because we were not about to be held responsible for his own stupidity, of course. This was also during the busiest part of the day. I don't mind helping load or tie down for customers, but this guy took the cake. Story 6. Work greets at American Eagle today. My job was to stand at the front and tell you what the sale was. Some lady walked in with like 8 bags, and the alarm went off, so I smiled and said that it went off most likely because there's possibly still a tag on one of her items. This was her response. I just walked in, and you're already accusing me of stealing. And then stormed off. Nothing special, honestly, just another day of retail. Yeah, small Canadian town life. Story 7. When I worked at Best Buy, I watched 2 elderly ladies get in a fist fight over a Nintendo DS. That, and the cleaning the aftermath of Black Friday. Looked like a grocery store before a hurricane. Story 8. Too many horror stories. I'm going to give you my last customer from today. I'm a service advisor at a very large Toyota dealership. My typical cutoff was rolling around. Usually stop riding cars an hour before my shift ends, but I got a car that came in for a wheel rotation, wrote it up, and immediately got it into the shop. My techs knocked it out lickety-split, and I got it over to the wash. He was bored and wanted it done right, and washed it myself. I even vacuumed the car, drove the car up to the drive-out section, called the customer, and turned in the paperwork to be closed out. Asked my boss for some of the Knott's Berry Farms tickets that all Toyota dealerships in SoCal are handing out. And when he came to grab his car, I let him know that I was able to wrangle some Knott's tickets for him. His face lit up like Christmas. Hope he has a great holiday season. Story 9. When I was 15, I got my first actual job. It was at a clothing store, and my first day was Black Friday. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal because I was hired for men's formal wear. When I show up at 4 a.m., the manager tells me I'm working women's shoes today. Only absolute madness. The worst part is shoe salesmen get commission, but since I didn't have employee numbers, I got only minimum wage, losing out of hundreds of dollars extra pay. Story 10. I worked at Walmart during Black Friday about 12 to 13 years ago. The hot items that year were 10 DVD players and trampolines. The DVD players were stacked on 2 tables near the registers, and the trampolines were in sporting goods. I'm walking to the receiving area in the back, and someone from Sporting Goods asks if I can grab a U-boat or L-cart to load up the last trampoline. I had to go all the way to grocery to get one, and as I'm coming back, someone asks about an item. So I walk 2 feet away from my cart, and some woman grabs it and runs towards Sporting Goods. I get there, and the woman and husband are loading up the trampoline, and it wasn't even for them. The other lady that had it and purchased it, that receipt and all, just needed to carry out, said, "Hey, that's mine," and the husband got her face and said, "What are you going to do about it?" They started to walk off, and I was shocked at that point, and the husband looked at me and said, "That's your problem." I just smiled and told the sporting good guy to call management. The husband then said, "Run, honey," and they booked it to the front. They made it out of the store with the trampoline too. Then I get to the front near the 10 DVD players. One older woman grabs the last one left on one of the two tables. Another lady grabs the same one. They scuffle. One lady decks the other one into the other table full of 10 DVD players, and they all fall over and she runs, never again. Story 11, it was technically the day after Black Friday, but it was still busy as all. I worked as a customer service supervisor at CompUSA before they closed down Think Best Buy, and all of my checkers called in sick that morning. All of them. So I'm the only one ringing people up for the first 6 hours of the day. When I finally got a 15-minute break, I went into the back area and blew up at the first manager I could find. I was so pissed and stressed. He just sat there and let me vent to him. After a little while, I went back to him and apologized to him, and he was cool with it all. That day sucked. Story 12, when I was in school, I worked at Walmart for the holidays. They had a fun agreement where if you worked Thanksgiving 6 p.m. until Black Friday morning 6 a.m., you didn't have to come in Black Friday. Fun, right? So after Thanksgiving lunch with my boyfriend's family at 4 p.m., I headed to work where I put on an oversized yellow smock with a blue sun on it. I was put in charge of 70-inch plasma screen television vouchers. I was given 7 vouchers to distribute at 8 p.m. so customers could go to the register, pay for the television, and have it loaded into their car around back. So problems arose very quickly. A line for the 70-inch television began as I started my shift at 6 p.m. As soon as 7 people formed a line, I had to turn people away. At 8 p.m., the vouchers were distributed. Customers 1 and 2 were husband and wife. They were an older couple who brought camping chairs to wait for their 2 vouchers. Hay race with a mess started. Customer 8 approaches me for a voucher. I tell him that they have all been distributed, and he was free to come back within the hour to see if anyone surrendered their voucher. He then becomes visually distressed and angry, to which there was nothing I could do. In comes customer 1 from before, the older man from the couple. He offers to sell his voucher to customer 8 for what was close to the price of the on-sale television that had not been purchased. Customer 8 agrees reluctantly, pulls out the money in exchange for the television voucher. The older couple then walks off with not only misses Customer 2's television voucher, but also the newly acquired cash TO by said television at the register. In comes customer 9, who addresses me very angrily with, "Hey you, aren't you going to do something about that?" while gesturing wildly at the older couple who totally scored and the poor guy who essentially paid double for a Black Friday television. I had to let that customer know that what others did with the vouchers was their business. This guy got way too close to me, and one of my coworkers noticed and came to help. The guy then takes OFF in a huff and claims Walmart cheated him. 2 months later, I quit to work in my license field and never looked back. Years later, still no regrets. I don't even like going into the store I worked at. Story 13, not retail, but I worked at a restaurant that is right across the street from the mall and open Black Friday, so naturally after people get great deals on whatever they come eat. Anyway, I'm sitting in back of the house Black Friday morning, waiting for my inevitably long shift to start. It was incredibly busy as it was, but I wasn't about to clock in early. I was BSing with one of the managers when I heard a hostess scream for the walkie, "Help, help." So I immediately rushed to the entrance to see 2 grown men on the ground fighting. One in nothing but his underwear, and my shift lead trying to pull them off each other while screaming fucking stop. This is a family restaurant. There are children here. I jolted forward in an attempt to break up the fight. This is where it gets weird. Everyone is gathered around this small area watching or trying to help when someone grabbed a fire extinguisher and started spraying us with it. So we have a bunch of people trying to break up a fight between a man in his underwear and some other dude, and someone spraying us with a fire extinguisher while we have Christmas carols playing in the background. Finally, we get the fight broken up. Cops show up. The whole 9 yards. Turns out the guy got the last T voucher or whatever for the Best Buy, and the other guy got pissed and followed him over to try to buy the TV from him. The one got the TV, told him off, so this guy took off his pants, and they got into a fight. Guy 1 got the last T voucher from Best Buy, and guy 2 was very angry about that. So he followed him over to the restaurant to try and buy the TV from him. Guy 1 told guy 2 to off, so guy 2 took off his pants and started to fight guy 1. Story 14, worked at Walmart years ago. One of my managers thought she was being sneaky and swapped my Black Friday off shift. With it on at 9 a.m., my shifts normally didn't start until 1 and ended at 9. So this was utter bullshit. I was in the bakery department and had to work all of Thanksgiving the day before, and they ended up needing more help. I came in at 6 a.m. that day and worked a 14-hour shift because most of my team had been given the holiday off. My manager's excuse being, "You're young. They have families they need to be with and kids to celebrate with," so I was pretty angry. I found out that the Black Friday sale was a 65 LCD TV in electronics and PS3s. So needless to say, it was going to be a bloodbath. I stayed in my department because there was literally no one else there and caught up on much-needed sanitation. When the manager found out before the sale started, she came my way to rain down fire, brimstone, and bullshit on me. Thankfully, I could use their own bullshit policies against them. There needs to be at least one member of the bakery crew on hand to write on cakes. And since I was the only one there, they were out of luck. I got out of Black Friday bullshit. Got an easy day of work and the perfect spot to watch the chaos, all while screwing over a manager I hated. It was a beautiful day. Story 15. This happened just today, actually. I work at Starbucks, went to do my routine lobby and bathroom check, just to clean up during the craziness. Went into the men's restroom, and there was smeared all over the walls, toilet seat, and mirror. Really had no other choice but to clean it up with my coworker. Definitely the most disgusting, literally, I've ever had to do in my life. Update, wow, this blew up. So I talked to my manager and showed her this exact post. Reading a bunch of the replies, she wasn't mad, but in a sense of awe that we were willing to clean up. Even she said she would never ever do that. We went over the policy and reviewed our resources in case this happens. There gets a point where your mind is literally go from the craziness of customers and orders that didn't seem to faze me at all. I'm still baffled at who wipes on the walls at a Starbucks. I don't think we pissed off anyone that bad. The good news is that my boss said she's so thankful to have me and all that good stuff. But yes, we do have a number to contact in case someone decides to smear their feces everywhere. In the meantime, we were supposed to just lock the door and put a sign on the front. Thank you everyone for helping me out. I did not expect the load of replies. I now know how to clean up the I feel stupid for doing it, but am glad I now know. Story 16. I work at a kid's store where almost everything was half off today. But the thing is, I normally help moms and grandparents at the register, so I don't see Best Buy style murder over televisions. I get old ladies yelling at my coworkers over the price of smiley face pillows and women bringing in hundreds of dollars worth of clothing and kitty makeup they bought weeks before at full price, just to buy it all back right away at sale price after the return's over. A grandpa shouted this is bullshit at me because I told him we were out of bathrobes. Good times. Edit, reading all these replies has taught me that the store I work in has a completely trash return policy. We do all our returns right then and there in front of the customer's face, sometimes without receipts. And I have to get a manager to come look at every return before I do it at the register. So there's no way for me to lie to them, to make them leave, sigh. Story 17. Be me. Working my first job, second week in, and I'm working the floor at a Best Buy on Black Friday. I wasn't that great at my job, so they had me running people from the line they had set up to different registers and quickly answering questions from customers. No big deal. At about 1 a.m., as I'm running customers back and forth, we hear a commotion on the other side of the store, and a few police officers come in. Turns out the guy had broken a bit of plastic off one of the information plaques and tried to use the pointy bit to stab an employee in the neck. I never found out why he did it. People are crazy. I am so incredibly thankful not to be working retail anymore. Story 18. When I was working at Walmart, me and another coworker had a lady come during our Black Thursday sale with her children. She was going around shopping with her kids for a while, but then she saw me and my coworker in the bedding department and left her children with us, asking for us to watch them while she went to get some products. Before we were able to tell her no, she disappears and doesn't come back for her kids for 20 minutes. Both of us are just standing there, watching her kids slowly freak out and cry for their mother, wondering if she's going to come back. My supervisor then walks by and sees what's going on. And when we filled her in, she was quite annoyed with the mother, who by this point has yet to make an appearance. When Mom finally showed, her children rushed to her, and my supervisor had a chat with her. Unfortunately, I didn't catch what my supervisor said to her. Story 19. I've worked quite a few Black Fridays, but the worst had to be Radio Shack. It was my first day, and I had no training. All I could do is point and hope to God they didn't ask me questions. Story 20. Someone else's experience reminded me of one I had a few years back. I worked at a toy store in the mall, really fancy mall, and we only sold one brand of toys. Anyways, we were all about interacting with the parents, and especially making the kids feel special. It was probably the best place in retail to work, not gonna lie. If I could have had full time with benefits, I'd have stayed. Anyhow, early December, a woman comes into the store with her two children, probably age 5 and 7, no older than that. I overhear her say, "I'll be back, stay here," and she just leaves them. Not a word to us. She just vanishes. Within minutes, it got busy, as in 50 customers plus kids. There are only 3 employees in the store, 2 on register. Then there's me, the shift manager, supposed to be helping people shop. There's no way I'm taking my eyes off of these kids. But there are too many people here. 5 minutes go by, then 10, then 15, and checking in with these little dudes to see how they're holding up. They're just fine, but I'm the type who takes 100% responsibility for children in my store. I call mall security because I'm freaking out about the need to watch them. At this point, I have to make a return and do a bunch of customer maintenance. No way to keep track of the kids. Turns out mall security called the cops. The officers show up about 25 minutes after this lady left her kids. the lady gets down and makes small talk with the boys while the man waits outside. Things slow to a crawl in the store. So my fellow employees entertain the boys while I speak with the officers. Apparently their mother had gone to the other mall across the effing 4-lane street. At 7:30 p.m., during crazy busy shopping time, she eventually did come back for them. But it had been close to an hour, and in Ohio, that is way past what counts as child abandonment. I didn't know what happened to her or them, but all I remembered is the shock of who thinks that's a good idea, and OMG, is she going to jail while I watch the officers her and her children away. Edit, I didn't want to name the store because I've still got an ongoing addiction love affair with the brand. But it'll spare everyone from having to play more 20 questions any longer. It was the Lego store. Story 21, I worked as a cashier at Target 2 years ago on Black Friday. My particular store opened at 7 on Thanksgiving, and I had to be there from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I don't know how many other stores do it, but for mine we had vouchers for the big ticket items like the new iPads and huge HD TVs, etc. So there usually wasn't a stampede of people, and the lines to the registers were set up very efficiently. Seeing all the preparation to avoid making it a show, I began to feel hopeful that it would be an okay night, well worth the holiday pay. As the doors were unlocked, I could not have been more wrong. About midnight, 2 large women come to my register with 4 cards piled with random that they had coupons for. Just imagine 40 bottles of shampoo, 50 sticks of deodorant, 25 2 liters of soda, etc., all just piled in there. I take a deep breath and began scanning items, and as I tell them the total somewhere around 800, one of them pulls out a wad of slightly damp coupons from her bra. Stifling the urge to vomit, I accept them and proceed to scan roughly 200 coupons. After doing about 20 of them with only 3 or 4 working, I decided to look at the coupons and sort them into expired and non-expired, as well as coupons from other stores that we didn't take. We would take manufacturers' coupons and Target coupons, but we wouldn't take a Bed Bath & Beyond coupon. About 20 minutes later, some coupons were hard to make out because of the dampness and the ladies insisting I sort through them all. I finalized the tally and proceeded to scan the maybe 30 coupons that were valid acceptable. The ladies realized that the pile is significantly shorter than it should have been and start bitching at me about the lack of coupons. I explain the situation and continue scanning and then putting them away and register. The lovely part came when the ladies realized their total was only reduced to around 700. Screaming that I was trying to scam them, the lady demanded I scan all the coupons. I politely explained that I could not scan the majority due to them being expired or unusable at our store. She then asked what discounts I could give her, and when I said that I couldn't give her any besides the normal 5 if she paid with a red card, she began pulling at the neckline of her shirt asking if there was anything she could do to get a discount. Let me stop here and say that I am partial to the thicker female form, but I'm not particularly attracted to someone who looks like a pregnant Michelin man, so I again politely refused and said if they had any more valid coupons I would be happy to scan them. Otherwise their total was XXX. Now the fun part, the 2 land whales decide their rights have been infringed upon and begin screaming profanities, prompting the GSDL General Sales Team lead and the 2 AP officers to come to my register rather quickly. Upon seeing people who looked in charge, the ladies began telling them how I failed to do my job, etc. After telling my boss what I did, she agreed with me and said that I was following the store's policy. The ladies then tipped over all 4 carts full of their spilling it all over the aisle, threw change at me and my GSDL, and proceeded to waddle out of the store. I quit right then and there and am now loving my job at a bakery. TLDR, 2 land whales dumped 4 carts full of in the aisle of my register when I wouldn't give them extra discounts or scan expired invalid coupons. Story 22, I work at a gas station, so I'm somewhat immune to Black Friday-itis. The worst we got this morning was cars lined up to get gas. On the other hand, we had a few Walmart workers come in, and they looked like they just came back from the war. Both of them had ladies ram their carts into their legs to get them merch. The guy said it was just a flurry of shredded plastic and hands when they kicked off the sales. Nobody got a full break, and the catered food was cold and well picked over by the time they could break. A car had sideswiped another car, damaging the paint pretty bad, and tried to drive off. On top of all, they're not getting time and a half for working Thursday night and a Friday morning, because it's not technically a holiday anymore. At least he got a homemade cupcake. I brought in cupcakes for the ladies working Thanksgiving at my job. Edit, I had that Walmart employee as a customer again today. He told my boss and I about how one of his co-workers was practically trampled. She's a petite little thing and got tripped accidentally this time. Not on purpose like the cart rammers by one customer, fell down and had several more walk on over her. She's okay, she's just sore and has bruising all over her legs. We seriously thought he was bullshitting us at first on this story, but he was dead serious. Story 23. About 6 years ago, I was working at a mall bookstore's cafe. I had the opening shift, which thankfully, because it was in a mall, was 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Unfortunately, the late shift person called in sick, so I had 2 hours off before a 4 p.m. close shift. While that sucks, it wasn't the worst part of the day. I actually had a customer who was stalking me and spent the entire day sitting in the cafe reading a book and occasionally coming up to order something new. Anytime I wasn't behind the counter or in the back room, he followed me around, including during my 2-hour shift gap. I didn't dare go to my car on my break because I didn't want him knowing what it looked like, and my manager didn't want to call security on him if he didn't actually approach me. Worst Black Friday ever. Luckily, 2 weeks later, he did approach me while I was working and asked if he could clip my fingernails as a keepsake. That was enough to get him banned from not only the store, but also the mall. My manager also made sure someone walked into my car for the next few months, so it was all good. Story 24. Last year, my store had some seasonal cashiers start on Thanksgiving Black Friday, and within the first hour of his first shift, some idiot tried to steal cash out of his drawer and stuff it in his apron. Our AP guy simply walked out his office and escorted him off the floor until the police arrived without the customers noticing. Story 25. I work at the largest lingerie retailer in the country. We had a security guard last night for the beginning of Black Friday. A Southern Belle mother decided she didn't want to wait in a 50-person deep line and she would cut. Our security guard asked her multiple times to step to the back of the line or leave. She proceeded to ream him with every curse word in the book and ended by threatening him with a gun she had in her bag. This will be my last holiday in retail. Story 26. I worked at a big box store last year. I was in charge of answering the phone. Only our cordless handsets were broken, so I literally could not leave the fitting room counter because that's where the landline was plugged in. So of course it was super busy, and I find out right away that if I parked a call and walkied the proper department to take the call, that call would not be taken because all the other employees were too busy assisting customers who were in the store. Even if I asked a question about item availability over the walkie, nobody answered because they were too busy. Yes, our store had little scanner devices that we could use to check on item availability, but not a single member of management in that store thought to reserve one for the telephone operator. After asking for one over the walkie 3 times and receiving no response, I gave up. The end result of this was that customers would call to see if we had an item in stock, and I would have to tell them that, to be honest, I had no idea. As you can imagine, the customers did not like this at all. One of the managers installed new cordless handsets about an hour before my shift ended, but the 8 hours prior had been absolute. Oh. And a few days later, I got pulled aside by a supervisor who hasn't even been in the store during my shift that day. She said that apparently I wasn't my usual cheery self on Black Friday, and that I had told a customer over the phone that I didn't know if we had an item in stock. The customer had actually called back and complained. It took everything I had not to go off on her. And the only reason I didn't was because she wasn't there during my shift, and none of it was her fault. But to the other members of management, of course, I told that person I didn't know if his item was in stock. I had literally no way of knowing. You did not give me any of the tools I needed to do my job, and you ignored me when I asked for them. And then you want to coach me on my customer service? Oh, that's on you. I'm so glad I no longer work there. I'm working in a high-end clothing store that rarely goes on sale. It's a small storefront, so any more than 20 people inside, and it's pretty packed. It's 9:30 in the morning, and this family comes in with 2 kids who are wired on sugar, running around, acting like idiots, and the parents are doing all because their favorite douchebag jeans are 40 off. The store has a bunch of metal pots and baskets used for display, which we couldn't put in the back because corporate would throw a fit. Little Timmy almost dies by near falling on a large metal basket with sharp, pokey things on it. My manager, in a calm but obviously annoyed tone, says, "Kids, it's not a playground." This leads Sally's soccer mom to lose it. "How dare you talk to my kids like that? Who the do you think you are?" This naturally cues her husband to become Billy and try to fight my manager, who is all of 56 and maybe 130 pounds soaking wet. I walk over, being 6 foot and 190 pounds and slightly more, able to defend myself from Billy, and ask them to leave the store or I'll call security. Get told to myself because they aren't leaving, so I better call the Pansy Mall security. Mall security shows up, and by the grace of the Black Friday retail gods, the one security officer who is actually intimidating responds, "Former university football player, like 66, and built like a brick shit house." Billy suddenly no longer wishes to engage in fisticuffs with the Pansy Mall security and quickly leaves with his family with security in tow. I don't think it was on Black Friday, but I was working for Payless Shoe Source at the time, and Oprah had some sort of coupon thing on her show for 50 off. Our store was pretty small, And it was completely packed. We didn't usually do very much business. So we're out of the door at 9, 10 p.m. every night. We didn't get home until 1 in the morning. The store was destroyed. We couldn't do any store maintenance during the 5 to 6 hour rush. So I'm amazed that some people could even find their products.